I have endeavored, in this ghostly little book, to raise the ghost of an idea, which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens, December 1843. Welcome, Arvocalists and Arvanauts. Welcome, everybody, to one of my favorite events of the year. Welcome, everybody, to A Christmas Carol. It is my great pleasure. Thank you, Shadowed Mage. 76 months. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. That was awesome. Thank you. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to one of my favorite events that we do every year, and this is A Christmas Carol with the Arvocalists. I am not going to go through all of my usual things, except to say that if you are new to the stream, I do hope you'll consider following and perhaps doing as Shadow Mage has done and subbed or resubbed to the channel. Also supporting the Patreon is great as well. Thank you, Rurf. You were an officer and a gentleman. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. These things that you're seeing, let me just reduce that down so you can actually see that. These things are really helpful to the channel. I do try to pay the Arvocalists as well. So all of that makes it, oh my God, it's all just flying in at once. Thank you, everybody. 78 total months. My goodness, Hillness. Thank you so much. Thank you to Rurf. Thank you to Hillness. Thank you to Shadow Mage. That is the kind of thing which is all part of the Christmas spirit. Please do tweet this out. So please follow. Please subscribe, as you've just seen. Please support the Patreon. And please do tweet and retweet and blue sky the heck out of this. Let's get as many people in here as we possibly can to watch this amazing event. Now, just before I introduce the folks, I am going to let you know that we have today with us four amazing actors, four amazing voice actors, and that are going to be with you for this event. I am thank you, Ballsteg. Good to see you. Thank you. And it's a great pleasure to have everyone here. I also want to say quickly that this is personally important to me, this story. It is my favorite story. It is, I think, maybe the best short story ever written in English. It is an extraordinary tale that is really not about, Christianity per se. Obviously, it is written from a Christian perspective, but it's really not about that. It's really about, honestly, hope and forgiveness to even people that don't really deserve it. And in a season in which we have seen a great deal of violence and hatred in the world, and a great deal of desires for vengeance, and a lot of screaming at each other, this is a story that gives the possibility of something opposite. And it also burns with a deep sense of anger at injustice that is done to the poor and to the indigent, and the incredible self-absorption of the rich that do not understand their privilege and their value relative to others. And so you see all of that from a person in Charles Dickens who was absolutely dirt poor and had to work, practically killing himself as a child in a factory to try to bring in enough money for his family to survive. So this is a huge deal for Dickens, and I think it comes across within this beautiful, really moving story. And also, as you're going to notice, really funny story, because there's a lot of really funny stuff that happens, especially when the Arvocalists get their hands on it. So I'm very excited and very honored to be able to share it with you. We've been doing this for a number of years, and it is a great pleasure to welcome this crew into the mix. And so, with no further ado, I am going to unmute myself, and I'm going to apologize to anyone that I interrupted because I couldn't hear them. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal to you the crew today for this extraordinary journey that we are about to take together. Now, Rem is not able to join us, unfortunately. Rem, of course, is part of our usual team. Rem will be back with us in January. We had hoped to have Little Red Dot with us, but do not have Dot at the moment. I don't know if Dot will join us later on. Oh, you do?
Yeah, I got a text from her. Unfortunately, she's still working. She has West Coast time, so she's still stuck at her job. And then on top of that, she's unfortunately been sick since Friday, so she's trying to get her voice back. If she can make it, she'll try to make it. She may be late, but I would suggest probably not expecting her.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, actually, I just
It'll be a nice surprise if she can join us.
Done for another 30 at the least. Okay. No, yeah, hold on. No problem. Dot heard from KP as well. No pressure. feel better. Okay, great.
Yay.
So there we go. So
Feel better.
By the way, you're fired.
yeah.
Oh, no.
Also, no. But it is a great pleasure, though, to have this crew with us. And you will notice that there are 3 of our current regulars and 1 alumnus of the Arvocalists as well. And of course, the 3 regulars, you can see, I will allow them to introduce them. And I deliberately did not just put like, all right, here's the alumnus, and then here's the, I mixed them up so you'll be able to see as you go through. Although this person has been doing Christmas Carol with us since the beginning, from the beginning of the time that we've done this. And this has to be like, this has to be like the 7th time that we've done this, I think now, at least.
I think so.
You know, and I have so much fun with this every time. But it's a great pleasure to have all of you here. And I will start with Zach. Zach Clay, one of our regulars, of course. Zach, good to see you. We just saw you recently for discussions of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. But how have you been since I spoke to you last? And any thoughts about Christmas Carol as you move into your third year of doing this?
I feel like this is my 4th.
It might be the fourth year.
Is right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so how are you feeling moving into this 4th year?
Excited, happy. I wish all of the alumni crew and current crew were here. I realize that now, Greg, you and I are the only people that are common between both groups at this point. As we just had Tren, Indy, and KP get introduced to each other for the first time.
Yeah.
So regardless, I'm doing great. Since last we spoke, I was just here for our Expedition mini stream that we did this past Saturday, and another stream hopefully later this month. We'll see. And yeah, I will be should we, Greg, go over like what our parts are?
I'm going to come back to you for that. Let me introduce everyone first, and then we can say who's doing what.
Great. All right,
so,
no, that's me. You'll be hearing. All I can say for now is you'll be hearing a lot of me tonight.
That is the case. Always a pleasure to have Zach with us.
Yeah.
Also a pleasure to have the aforementioned alumnus who's been doing this since the beginning, and of course should be extremely well known to people on this channel as being the role player in good standing, for Eberron Oracle of War, and also previously Shire Adventures, and soon to be happening Beowulf. In fact, you'll see Tren next week for session 0 of our Beowulf campaign, which is going to be good times. And it is Tren Sparks, the amazing narrator of the audiobook Greyshade, hopefully to be award-winning at all bookstores near you. Tren's good to see you. Any thoughts about, now that you're moving into like the 7th year or whatever this is of doing this event? Any feelings about this as you go into it?
Where's the nearest fire exit? Not that I'm going to start shouting fire in a home theater. I'm sure there's a law against that somewhere, probably somewhere. Yeah. Hi, Tren Sparks. I used to be the judge, but was
the origin of
very adequately replaced. Yes. Shut up. Why did I start doing that? I don't. It was just. Oh my God. The hammer comes down.
Yeah. Tren started that.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of classic voices from. I still remember. What were we doing? There was this game that we played that was like an 8-bit kind of game that we never finished.
Right.
Like, was it Read Only Memories?
I think so.
20-something.
And I still remember, Tren, a voice that you did for a one-off water robot character that I just like died laughing. I still remember that. And that was near the Read Only Memories was like the second or first game that I narrated with you guys at like at the start of me doing Arvocalists.
Yeah,
so anyway, yes, long history of great Tren voices on the Arvocalists. And also questionable ones.
A lot of those. Yeah. Especially the kind of just that hyper gay one from the Phoenix Wright one was just
oh God, the French chef or whatever.
Whatever he was, French chef, French maid, some bastard mixture of the two.
It was interesting.
Yeah, that was a thing. Hi, I'm Tren Sparks. I'm obviously from what these guys have been, and this. I'm a voice actor and an audiobook narrator. I predominantly, chiefly, primarily, some pick a word, I don't care. Do BattleTech and Shadowrun, and occasionally something that guy up there.
Hello.
Right, yeah, that one. That he wrote. But most recent work, which is finally finished. Oh my God. Now, Arv has heard me complain about, okay, I'm done. It's done. We're finally finished. And then I get word back saying, wait, we need you to redo these lines. And, oh, we want you to do this character. Can you record these? And here, do all of the author biography. Anyway, so there is this anthology called Inner Space and Outer Thoughts, by a bunch of, what are those people that write things? Authors, from JPL and Caltech. And I had the great honor and fortune to also narrate this guy right here. Anyway, that's coming up. I'll put a link to it's available for pre-order now. I'll put that link into chat so you guys can grab a hold of it. But yeah, I'm playing a couple of different people, and so it's this guy right down here, KP.
Well, there he is, KP. Welcome, first time ever for Christmas Carol shenanigans. Here, KP, how you doing? I finally got KP and I actually met in person. In actual person, which was great. Actually sitting there talking to Dot at the Kobold press booth, and I just turn around and suddenly this guy's like, and we're like, oh. So
it was scary. It was a very scary moment.
It was both scary but fun. And my wife and daughter were with me, and they were just kind of like, they're like, oh, thanks. My wife and daughter.
They were like, "Here's some food,"
and they were like, "Here's some food. Have a plate."
Exactly how it happened to the con, too.
Exactly. But no, they were like, Dad, okay, you got to stay with us, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. And then so two people, and they're like, "You kidding me?" I'm like, "It's not my fault. I know like 8 people here, okay?" Like, I mean,
little do they know how famous Greg actually is.
You did, yeah. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. So it was good seeing you, KP. How are you doing? How's life? How are you feeling about this?
I'm excited. First and foremost, I want to send a message from Rem if she hasn't already sent this to you. But how dare you not see her?
I did.
You did? You ended up seeing her. Okay.
I did see her, and she was too busy doing filming with someone here in this group that may or may not have been there. Yeah, I made several passes, past the Catalyst booth, and it was always Rem doing things. So no, I need to talk to Rem about it. But I did see her, but she was always like filming. So
she was very busy. Anyways, hello everybody. Yeah, dude, lots to cover. But I'm KP. You might know me as KP11 Studios. I'm a photographer, voice actor, and way too many other subpar things that I can't think of right now. I do all right at them, but that's fun. That's always the great thing. You don't need to be the best at it. Just enough and have fun doing it. And that's me. So this will be my first ever reading of the A Christmas Carol.
Awesome.
I've watched cartoons of it. I know the premise. I know the basic storyline and what the message is supposed to be. To be fair, also, my exposure to this probably dates back 23 years ago when I was still in India. And for some reason, Cartoon Network still, we got a lot of Christmas-based cartoons around this time. So that was where my first exposure of The Grinch was, my first exposure of A Christmas Carol was, and all of, the concept of Christmas was when I was still living in India. And then I have not had a single exposure to this since then. That's all my basis of everything is from my memories from back then. So I'm looking forward to being reintroduced to this and then actually reading my first ever experience live in front of an audience. And no pressure there about fucking up, but here we go. Yeah,
everyone said the same thing. Just before we go on, I want to thank all of the raiders from Author Little Badger. Welcome into the stream. Thank you so much, Darcy. You folks should be following Author Little Badger if you're not already. I talked about this earlier on today. Darcy is an awesome person and an excellent author and an excellent role player. So nothing but love for Darcy. Great stuff. Always from Darcy. So thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. Welcome everybody. Welcome Mer. Speaking of another person you should follow who's also awesome and amazing author. Thank you, Mer. Thank you, everyone, all of the folks there. Yeah, we are in the midst of just introducing the folks, and we're going to get started with Christmas Carol reading in a minute. So thank you, KP. I'm excited to see how... And KP has KP doesn't have that big a role here, as you'll notice. Not a significant, really, in the story. Yeah.
chucked
Decided
into
to
the
go
deep end.
easy.
Yeah, we wanted to sort of ease him
Yeah.
Totally.
into the mix.
I will. The last thing I did want to add is a
Yes.
follow up to Trent's last
Oh, yes.
chat. Is the as he mentioned the book that's coming out? Can you remind me of the title again? Because my brain is
That's
twisted.
okay. It does it for some reason doesn't stick, which is ironic given the title. Inner Space and Outer Thoughts.
Inner Space, and it's such a beautiful title too. I like Tren. It's an anthology piece with multiple different stories from multiple amazing, talented authors, and on top of that, multiple talented voice actors. Each one doing a different anthology, maybe some multiple. I got to do one that's very close to my heart and from where I come from, and it was a beautiful piece. So when it comes out, do check it out. It's a wonderful piece of work. And yes,
It was the Orphans of
Nirvali, Orphans of
yes.
Nirvali.
Very cool. I'm getting Discord notification
Congratulations.
sounds. So
I'm hearing them too.
and I'm not sure from where. So
My mic is muted. I've also been hearing them.
That
Which means KP.
I am a culprit. I've been saying all about me, and no one's like, "Who is it? Me? Is it my?"
I thought it was Greg because I figured Greg was sharing his screen, so his Discord.
no,
sounds
I don't
must be
have
on
my
or something.
notification. I've had my notifications off like for
Yeah.
years on Discord because of that.
I
Me
do
too.
not like Discord notifications.
Yeah.
Oh.
But something that Indy does like is I think hanging out with all of us. At least we like hanging out with him. It is
Yeah.
the amazing Indy that you can see down below. Consummate gamer, consummate musician, consummate professional, and consummate voice actor. And has joined us. Consummate. Yes, consumptive. No, that was an illness from Dickens' time, which hopefully we don't have anymore. Anyway, Indy, it's good to see you again. Same. This is the first time you're doing Christmas Carol with us. How are you doing? And do you have any thoughts today about your launching into this this role? This work, this famous work. How are you feeling about it?
I am overjoyed, excited. Thank you guys as always for having me. Hello everyone in the chat. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to dive in and have some fun.
That's good stuff. And yes, and as we say, just major roles for some people, as we'll talk about right here. Also, Indy is fueling something that will carry him throughout the year, which you'll see next year at the same time. All right, Zach, let us know, please, if you would, the major roles. Who's going to be playing what today, if you could tell us.
Sure. So, fellow castmates, I sent the list of roles that is totally not going to change at any point.
No.
And
Locked in stone.
It may not already be changed because of a certain missing member.
Right.
And also other contradictions that we may not be aware of later in the story. So, starting with the fact that I will be the narrator, presumably the entire time. Wish me luck. Maybe a little curveball thrown to someone else at the end, but I should be fine. I'll let you guys know. Next, am I just going to go through all of them?
Yeah,
Greg?
well, let's talk about the main role. I can do part of
Okay,
it too.
yeah,
So
the main roles.
main roles. Playing so that'll be that. Playing the role of Scrooge, again, fairly minor role, is going to be none other than KP. Let's go. KP is going to be playing Scrooge today. Again, minor role. So KP will be a grumpy person who somehow finds redemption despite everything. So that's going to be
close to my heart.
Yeah,
That is
that's the key. So that's going to be KP. Tren is going to be playing several roles. Tren will be, first of all, spoilers. Sorry. My bad. Well, but first there's a big battle against aliens, so it's awesome. All right.
yeah.
Oh wait, that's also a spoiler. Okay, so then we have Tren will be Scrooge's nephew. Tren will be the ghost of Christmas past. Tren will be some Fezziwig, but which one you'll find out. Tren will also be Mr. Bob Cratchit. So that is Tren's roles, plural, in this today.
Sweet buttery rolls.
Buttery rolls.
Oh man, I need
Indy-
some of those right now.
Indy is going to be the ghost of Christmas present. Indy is going to be, and I quote, the charity guys. Indy is going to be, and I also quote, the robbers. So Indy is going to be engaged in a number of different aspects of personality. Some that are totally close to life that he would understand, and some that are totally opposite him, and only he knows which is which. As we go through.
Calling me a thief after my Oblivion play yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I literally came in and you were lockpicking, but that was totally fine. I can't imagine. Okay. Actually, do we have also him playing? Is he doing the other Fezziwig, or did we decide that yet?
We could do that.
Okay, so he'll also be the other Fezziwig.
Okay.
As well.
I am the other.
And then
Right.
I will be playing two roles. One of them I will be playing Marley. And I will also be playing, because it fits my actual timbre and pitch of my voice, Tiny Tim. Because clearly I am, that is my voice, as you can tell. I think it's clearly demonstrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So there we go. So that is the role that we have set. We are using this, as you can see, this is on scroogeandmarley.org, in case anyone is curious and wants to follow along at home. This is literally the one that was abridged by Charles Dickens for his own public readings. Remember, Christmas Carol was originally serialized, and it was placed into, not serialized, I should say. It was published, though, in a magazine first before it came out, and it was this enormous, overwhelming
Dragon
hit.
Magazine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was in. But it was overwhelmingly
With stat
successful.
blocks for all three ghosts.
And exactly. And it made it possible for him to be able to do a lot of his other stuff later on. So it begins with him saying, I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens, December 1843. And we begin with Marley's ghost.
Marley was dead, to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legatee, his sole friend, his sole mourner. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, however. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. He answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Grindstone was Scrooge. Yep. So it begins. I was like, man, I'm doing so good, guys.
3 paragraphs in. Here we go.
It starts with grindstones. Okay. Wish me luck on this next line. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. External heat and cold had little influence on him. No warmth could warm, no cold could chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did, whatever that means. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, that would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, Dark Master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was what the knowing ones call nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, upon a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting, foggy weather, and the city clocks only just gone 3. Had only just gone 3.
Typo,
Yep.
yeah.
There's going to be a few of those.
See?
Yep.
But it was quite dark already. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon the clerk who, in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. And so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of a strong imagination, he failed. And now Scrooge's nephew is... Friend. What do you say?
A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!
Oh, yes. Remember from last year where there's that typo of I? We
Yeah.
said I.
I God save you.
Yes.
I, God save you! Ah!
Cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation Scrooge had of his approach.
Bah!
Said Scrooge.
Humbug!
Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure?
I do. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer? A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you? If I had my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
Uncle!
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it? But you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone, then. Much good may it do you. Much good it has ever done you.
There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say, Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come around, apart from the veneration due to its sacred origin, if anything belonging to it, Colby, apart from something, I completely lost the sentence, but I'll back up a bit and start again. This is how it goes, Uncle. Stake of holly, indeed, belonging to it, Colby, apart from the. See, it's that damned comma and the double dash. Apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and to thank of people below them as if they really were fellow travelers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and I will, and will do me good, and I say, God bless it.
The clerk in the tank and the narrator involuntarily applauded.
Let me hear another sound from you,
said Scrooge.
You keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir,
he added, turning to his nephew.
I wonder, you don't go into Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression and said that he would see him in that extremity first.
But why?
That's me.
Oh, sorry. I saw.
See, this is how it goes.
But why?
But why?
Cried Scrooge's nephew.
Why?
Is that still him?
No,
Nope,
that's you.
this is
No,
you.
this
Oh.
is you.
That's
this-
Scrooge.
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love.
Growled Scrooge, as if that were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon.
Oh, nay, uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it a reason for not coming now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry with all of my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle,
Good afternoon.
and a Happy New Year!
Good afternoon.
His nephew left the room without an angry word, notwithstanding. The clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands, and bowed to him.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe.
Said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list.
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago, this very night.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge,
Said the gentleman, taking up a pen.
it is more than usually desirable that we should take some slight provision from the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessities. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts,
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons, but under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the unoffending multitude, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat to drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time, of all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Did you ask me what I wish, gentlemen? That is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. I was about to say whorehouses. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Okay.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
At length, the hour of shutting up the counting
up.
house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge, dismounting from his stool, tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. And I don't think we have a clerk.
Yeah, but that next line is
and
Okay.
it's that is Cratchit. The clerk is
Oh,
Bob.
that's
the
right.
clerk is Bob Cratchit,
Okay. Okay.
which I think we
So-
do have, right?
Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose.
It's quite convenient, sir.
If it is not convenient, it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself mightily ill-used, I'll be bound.
Yes, sir.
And yet, you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wage for no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the early next morning.
The clerk promised that he would,
Yeah.
and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide, at the end of a lane of boys 20 times in honor of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home as hard as he could pelt to play at Blindman's Bluff. Blindman's Buff. Bluff?
It is Buff.
It should be
No,
Bluff.
it is blind.
It
No,
is?
it's not Bluff. It's Blind Man's Buff. Yeah, which is sort of like
Well, I
a.
mean-
You're like you have your eyes covered. You're spun around 3 times, and you're basically. It's like Marco Polo on land. You
I know
what
what
I mean?
it
You're like-
is.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
always heard it Blind Man's Bluff.
No, I think it's. I mean,
I mean,
geez.
earlier it's like hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts. Air. That should be Sir. Who knows? It could very well
I need to,
be
I need to
another
look it up again.
typo.
I think it's Blind Man's Buff, but I'll check that again. Anyway.
Whatever.
All right.
¿Por qué no?
Whichever it was, he went to go play it. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building up a yard. The building was old enough now and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of this house, except that it was very large. Also that Scrooge had seen it, night and morning, during his whole residence in that place. Also that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London. And yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face with a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. Very accurate, Greg. It was not angry or ferocious, but it looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up upon its ghostly forehead, and a pair of white headphones and a cap. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. Scrooge said,
Poo-poo.
and closed the door with a bang.
I'm just so happy I got to say poo-poo.
Yes. Lovely.
The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Thanks. Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly too trimming his candle as he went. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for its being very dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa. A small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and the little saucepan of gruel, Scrooge had a cold in his head, upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in the dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual. Old fire guard, old shoes, 2 fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell. A disused bell that hung in the room and communicated, for some purpose now forgotten, with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that, as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. Soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This was succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. It came on through the heavy door, and a spectre passed into the room before his eyes. And upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, I know him, Marley's ghost. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now. Though he looked the phantom through and through, and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and noticed the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, he was still incredulous.
How now?
Said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever.
What do you want with me?
Much.
Marley's voice, no slight doubt about it.
No, that's how he talked in real life.
Yeah. And then Scrooge said, yes.
And then Marley said,
He said,
Did you say who are you? I didn't hear it. Did
Oh,
you
I
say
did.
who
Okay.
are you?
who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Can you sit down?
I can.
Do it then?
Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?
I don't know.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an undertone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are.
Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart, as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his horror. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down upon its breast.
Mercy! Dreadful apparitions, why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. I cannot tell you all I would. A very little more is permitted to me. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me! In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me.
7 years dead, and traveling all the time. You travel fast.
On the wings of the wind.
You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years.
Oh, blind man. Blind man, not to know that ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunities misused. Yet I was like this man. I once was like this man.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself.
Business!
Cried the ghost, wringing its hands again.
Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business.
Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly.
Hear me. My time is nearly gone.
I will. But don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob. Pray.
I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend to me. Thank ye.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance you hoped to... Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob? I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow night when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that for your own sake you remember what has passed between us.
It walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the apparition reached it, it was wide open. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, like this.
Can we scroll down a bit?
Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable.
Humbug. Or
Perfect. and being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, he went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant. The first of the 3 spirits. Yes, Trent?
Quick. Something I just realized that I've never noticed in this story before was where Jacob says, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. So Marley is the one who got him the chance at... okay.
Yeah.
I was just noticing that too. So did I there.
Yep. Yeah, Marley is the one who set it up, but, at what cost, one wonders.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It took him 7 years, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was the only person that Scrooge was ever close enough to even give a damn enough to do that, I guess.
And it fits, it kind of feels funny in my brain because I was thinking, what if this story were done as a change the other way around? and it was Scrooge that had died first, would he do the same thing for Marley?
That's a good
And I
question.
don't think he would.
I don't think so either.
So, yeah.
Although Marley was
interesting.
apparently a lot like Scrooge in life, so you wonder if like this would have
Yeah.
changed him after that time. Yeah, I don't know, but
Like, well, if you're, because that's what he said was like, when after I realized after dying what was actually meaningful, because he's a tortured soul,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. The lines about business, were my business, one of my favorite in the entire story. Like business. Let me tell you what business is. Anyway, sorry. On we go.
My apologies, Mr. Narrator. Please continue.
The first of the three spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber, until suddenly the church clock tolled a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1.
Aha, Mr. Bell. Where are you, Mr. Bell? Thank
You
you.
had one job.
I did, and it was one bell.
Right, yeah.
Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using in its duller moments a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past. The things that you will see with me are shadows of the things that have been. They will have no consciousness of us.
Scrooge then made bold to inquire what business brought him here.
Your welfare. Rise and walk with me.
It would have been in... You all right there, Ghost of Christmas Past?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes. That bed was warm, and the thermometer a long way below freezing. That he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at the time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped its robe in supplication.
I'm immortal and liable to fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand there,
Said the spirit, laying it upon his heart.
and you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood in the busy thoroughfares of a city. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it? Was I apprenticed here?
They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a high desk, if he had been but 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against his ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezwig! Bless his heart. It's Fezwig alive again!
Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice,
You ho there, Ebenezer, Dick.
a living and moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice.
Dick Wilkins, to be sure,
said Scrooge to the ghost.
my old fellow apprentice. Bless me, yes. There he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Oh, Dick. Dear, dear.
You're home, my boys,
said Fezziwig.
No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here.
Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor made me think the modern way of saying that would be as if it were canceled, removed from public life forevermore. Yeah.
Canceled.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see a modern revision, kind of a joking modern revision. Anyway.
Okay, joking, good. Yeah.
Yeah. The floor was swept and watered. The lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman.
Hello.
In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couples starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out,
Well done!
And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that specific purpose. There were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there was cake, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. Top couple, too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners. People who were not to be trifled with. People who could dance and had no notion of walking. But if they had not been twice as many, 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, turn your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the 2 prentices, they did the same to them. And thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. Then the ghost said,
Well, before that, as Arv had noted in chat privately, that there were no lines from Mrs. Fezziwig, which is who I was supposed to do, and I was planning to go full Julia Child on that shit, just so we're clear.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So, back to the ghost spirit person.
Yes.
Make up a
thing.
line real quick. Just say something.
Oh, I love seeing you wink with your legs, Master Fezziwig.
Anything for you, my dear.
Oh, don't say that. I'll have you buy me a ballzoy. I need something to brush when you're not around.
I do feel like this is getting rather inappropriate for the
I
current situation.
Do it. Dick, Ebenezer, go to your room. Oh, your rooms are right there. We'll go to our room then. Right, Good night, lads. And then off we go. Shouldn't have done that. Okay.
No, that was great.
Sure.
Worth
okay,
it.
Right.
Totally worth
Whatever. To you, I'm the one that's got to continue with this stupid prepubescent voice.
You chose it.
Yeah, I did. There's a monster of my own making. Where was I? Yes. A small matter.
Said the ghost.
To make these silly folks so full of gratitude, he spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that deserves this? Yes. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?
It isn't that.
Said Scrooge, heated by the remark and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self.
It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it costs a fortune.
He felt the spirit's glance and stopped.
What is the matter?
I think it's the other way around. The spirit speaks. That was the matter.
Fine, Mr. Dickens, have it your way.
Please do not mess up my words.
What is the matter?
Nothing in particular.
Something, I think.
No. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all.
My time grows short.
Observed the spirit.
Quick!
This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again he saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a black dress, in whose eyes there were tears.
I'm going to bring in a ringer. My daughter's here. Let's have her do this.
Yay!
We didn't do this
Yay!
live. So, come here. Hurry up.
Good, because I was afraid I was going to Julia Childs this up.
Another missed opportunity.
Hello there. So, you are playing the role of...
Playing his beloved when he was young.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I can't
So
do
we're...
a British accent. Okay.
No, you don't have to. A young girl whose heart
She's
is
from
getting,
America.
whose heart is getting broken.
It matters little.
She said softly to Scrooge's former self.
To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to, I have no just cause to grief.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one. You fear the world too much. I have seen your noble aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion gain engrosses you, have I not?
What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I'm not changed towards you. Have I ever sought release from our engagement?
In words? No, never.
In what then?
Then I think this is still you. It's missing a quote.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Or it's Centivine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope at its great end. If you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can I even believe that you would choose a dowerless girl, or choosing her, do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do, and I release you. With full heart, for the love of him you once were.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
Ooh, good job.
I'll get to it in just a second.
I told you these were shadows of things that have been,
Said the ghost.
that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me.
Scrooge exclaimed.
I cannot bear it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with the spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
Oh, little
Sorry.
R.
Yay.
Little R.
It's my daughter,
Right.
of whom I am incredibly proud all the time, and who has been voice acted trained by none other than one Mr. Zach Clay, by the way. Great job, hon.
That explains a lot.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Hey.
Yes, we are going on. Just before we go on, we're about halfway through, maybe a little bit beyond that. Welcome, everybody. If you are watching one of my favorite events every year, A Christmas Carol, being voiced by the incredible Arvocalists, represented tonight by the three of the four current Arvocalists, Zach Clay, Indy, and KP, and represented by alumnus of the Arvocalists, and, of course, member in good standing here in role play and many other things. And that, of course, is Trent Sparks as
You're
well.
saying I'm old.
No, I'm just referring to your status as an alumnus.
Well, I'm older than all of you put together. So
We're all alumnuses somewhere.
We're all right. We're all in this way. We still have two ghosts in the aftermath. Yeah, but they go faster than you think. Anyway, but if you are enjoying this, please follow, support the channel in all the different ways. And please, I hope you'll all sit back and are enjoying a beverage of whatever kind you wish. That's kind of
Water!
exactly what this
Eggnog.
is for. The eggnog is legit, by the way. Anyway, on we go. Second of the three spirits.
Yep. All right. The second of the three spirits. A. Waking. Scrooge found himself in his bedroom. There was no doubt about that. But it and his own adjoining sitting room, into which he shuffled in his slippers, attracted by a great light there, had undergone a surprising transformation.
sorry.
I wondered if we were going to get Autobots, roll out.
Roll out.
Ghosts of Christmas Past,
Roll out.
roll out.
Ghosts of Christmas Past, roll out. I love it.
Oh, man.
The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, as if many little mirrors had been scattered there. And such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as that petrifaction of a hearth had never known in Scrooge's time, or Marley's, or for many and many a winter season gone. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, brawn, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12th cakes, no 13th cakes, and great bowls of punch. An easy... Oh, nice, Arv,
Just,
whatever that is.
I just had it ready, just in case.
What was that?
It was turkeys, geese, game, brawn, great joints of meat. It
Oh,
was,
yeah, wow.
it
Okay.
was my dinner, which I'm not eating yet.
Yeah.
It's just oysters. It's just
It's
a plate.
just,
of oysters.
it's just brawn. It's whatever
Yeah,
brawn is. It's just that.
Just brawn. Yep.
A quick pick upper.
I was going to say, it's just a
Yeah,
roll
yeah.
of not
Yeah.
toilet paper. Whatever. There we go. Go.
In easy state, upon this couch, there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch, in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and who raised it high to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door.
Come in, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before.
Man, he's full of himself.
Yeah, rightly so.
Never.
have never walked forth with the younger members of my family, meaning, for I am very young, my elder brother is born in these late years?
Pursued the Phantom.
I don't think I have. I'm afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1,800.
A tremendous family to provide for. Spirit, conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learned a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
Thank you.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast.
It's nice,
The room
right?
and its contents, yeah, it's cashmere, all vanished
Don't rub it,
instantly.
little pill.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
good stuff.
God, go.
And they stood in the city's streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on, invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerks. And on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinklings of his torch. Think of that. Bob had but 15 bob a week himself. He pocketed on Saturdays but 15 copies of his Christian name. And yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his four-roomed house. What does that mean? What does it mean to have 15 bobs a week?
It's
Is
a
that-
it's a 19th century. Bob was a sort of slang for coins. And I don't
Okay.
remember what, like, if it's shillings, it might have been 15 shillings, and each shilling was a bob. I don't remember why it was called that specifically.
That sounds
but
right.
Yeah.
My housemate
That
and I were
makes
also
sense.
my housemate and I were talking about this yesterday. Actually, that if you adjust for inflation, that what Bob Cratchit made is less $2. Well, it's $2 more than minimum wage now.
Jeez. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the entire implication here is that, I mean, and at least I think this is like through what I guess what Scrooge is thinking, in that even this guy who's such an ordinary guy, doesn't make a lot of money, is being visited upon by the ghost of
Yep.
Christmas,
Mhm.
Yep.
showing the importance to this person
Mhm.
that in his eyes shouldn't have that much importance.
Yeah. Not to mention how they celebrate it, as we'll see.
He can't be that important. He's not rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, are there no poor
According to-
houses? Oh,
I
man.
know.
And according to a lot of CEOs nowadays.
Yeah. Dickens, by the way,
Then-
last note, sorry. Dickens
Yeah, go ahead.
himself made considerably less as a child working in a factory to keep his family alive than Bob Cratchit did. Dickens loathed inequality, especially economic inequality, and it's like it's infused with every part of his writing. It's one of the reasons that people are like, it's a fun, cute story. No, it's a very angry story.
You clearly
Very-
haven't really read it then.
Yeah, it's a very angry story, and a lot of. I mean,
Seen
there's
the
hope,
words on
but
the page.
there's a lot of hope in it, obviously. But he was very angry about what was done to him and his family. Sorry,
I'm ready to speak.
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
God!
Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, who, if you were not aware, was Cratchit's wife, dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, brave in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for 6 pence. And she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her name, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes, and getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property conferred upon his son and heir in honor of the day, into his mouth, rejoiced to find himself so gallantly attired, and yearned to show his linen in the fashionable park, and now 2 smaller Cratchits. That there probably should have been a period there. In the fashionable park. And now 2 smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose, and known it for their own, and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion, these young Cratchits danced about the table and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, while he, not proud, although his collars nearly choked him, blew the fire until the slow potatoes, bubbling up, knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled. And someone...
I think it's.
Help! Help!
I think this was.
we had me down as doing it. I can still do it.
It's up to you. Yeah, you can.
Okay, I'll do it.
We want to get India hasn't had a lot of opportunities. Do we want to maybe give
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Let's.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay, Indy, you are Mrs. Cratchit,
You are Mrs. Cratchit.
who is a humble, the humble wife of Mr. Cratchit.
What has ever got your precious father, then?
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
And your brother, Tiny Tim? Martha was as late last Christmas Day by half an hour.
Here's Martha, mother.
Said a girl, appearing as she spoke.
Apparated. Who the hell is this child?
All right,
Here's Martha, mother.
Here's Martha, mother. Yeah.
Cried the two young Cratchits. Hurrah! Someone else has to join me. There were
yeah.
two young Cratchits.
Ah,
Hurrah! Such a
goose,
goose,
Martha.
Martha. That was 5 Cratchits, but it's close enough.
What?
Why?
No, there not probably are 5 Cratchits.
Bless your heart alive, my dear. How late you are.
Said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times and taking off her shawl and bonnet for her.
Oh, we'd a deal of work to finish up last night,
Replied the girl.
and had to clear away this morning, mother.
Well, never mind, so long as you are come.
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
Sit ye down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm, Lord bless you.
Okay, and in unison, no,
No,
there's
no.
Father
there's
coming.
Father coming.
Cried the two 7 Cratchits, who were everywhere at once.
Everywhere at once. That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
Hide, Martha.
Hide.
Hide.
Oh my god.
Yes.
That's not Nightmare Before Christmas. What the hell
The
is
second,
this?
the second coming. Silent
Martha,
Hill.
hide down that alley with
Yes.
with
Yes.
Thomas Wayne. Nothing
No.
bad ever happened
Wow.
in that alley with just every woman
Oh.
named Martha in DC Comics.
It was
dies.
the
I'm
Deep
just
Honor
saying.
Society. Yeah.
And all the Bruces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Martha hid herself, and in came little Bob, the father, with at least 3 feet of comforter, exclusive of the fringe, hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look
Darned up.
seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim! He bore a little crutch, and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
Why, where's our Martha?
Cried Bob Cratchit, looking round.
Not coming.
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
Not coming.
Said Bob, with a sudden declension in his high spirits, for he had been Tim's blood horse all the way from church, and had come home rampant.
Not coming upon Christmas Day.
Martha didn't like to see him disappointed, if it were only in joke. So she came out prematurely from behind the closet door and ran into his arms, while the two young Cratchits hustled Tiny Tim and bore him off to the wash house that he might hear the pudding sing in the copper.
Before his end. I was gonna say that, yeah.
This is
Bore him off
this is
to
a
his
stick-up.
doom.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This is a hustle, Tiny Tim.
And how did little Tim behave?
Asked Mrs. Cratchit, when she had rallied Bob on his credulity and Bob had hugged his daughter to his heart's content.
As good as gold. I should have
Said
sold
Bob.
him, honestly. Oh, sorry. And better, actually. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Bob's voice was tremulous when he told them this, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hearty.
He was growing strong and hearty.
His active little crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim before another word was spoken, escorted by his brother and sister to his stool beside the fire. And while Bob, turning up his cuffs, as if, poor fellow, they were capable of being made more shabby, compounded some hot mixture in a jug with gin and lemons, and stirred it round and put it on the hob to simmer, Master Peter and the two ubiquitous young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession.
Bubble, bubble, toilet.
I was going to say something like Goose and Tommy Domine.
Right, exactly.
Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy, ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. The two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves and mounting guard upon their posts, crammed spoons into their mouths, lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be helped. At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause. As Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it in the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all round the board, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, beat on the table with the handle of his knife, and feebly cried,
Hurrah!
"There was never such a goose." Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cooked. Its tenderness and flavor, size and cheapness were the themes of universal admiration. Eked out by applesauce and mashed potatoes, it was a sufficient dinner for the whole family. Indeed, as Mrs. Cratchit said with great delight, surveying one small atom of a bone upon the dish, they hadn't ate it all at last. Yet every one had had enough, and the youngest Cratchits in particular were steeped in sage and onion to the eyebrows. But now the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone, too nervous to bear witnesses, to take the pudding up and bring it in. Suppose it should not be done enough. Suppose it should break in turning out. Suppose somebody should have got over the wall of the backyard and stolen it while they were merry with the goose. A position at which the two young Cratchits became livid. All sorts of horrors were supposed. Hello! A great deal of steam. Pudding was out of the copper, a smell like a washing day. That was the cloth. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other with a laundress's next door to that. That was the pudding.
That's a very
In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly, with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half a quartern of ignited brandy, and bedight with Christmas holly stuck into the top.
In its heart. Sorry.
Bedight. Oh, a wonderful pudding. Wait. Oh, okay.
I guess that
here's
should be a
another
quote.
one.
I guess that's trend. I, Bob Cratchit. That's the new book, like the memoir. I, Bob Cratchit.
This is what I mean. There's typos throughout the whole thing.
I, God, yes. Oh, a wonderful pudding, I, Bob Cratchit said, and calmly too, that he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. Mrs. Cratchit said that now the weight was off her mind. She would confess
my mind.
she would confess she had had her doubts about the quantity of flour. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at all a small pudding for a large family. Any Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. At last the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jung being tasted and considered perfect. Apples and oranges were put upon the table, and a shovelful of chestnuts on the fire.
Chestnuts roasting on
This is an actual proper feast, y'all.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like,
welcome.
But like they saved the entire year to be able to do this. Like,
But still,
That's true.
Right when we get to the sage and onions, I just start drooling. Like, oh my God, that sounds fantastic.
yeah, I know. Everyone always comes out of this being like, man, this is like, yeah.
Then all the Cratchit family drew round the hearth in what Bob Cratchit called a circle. And at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass, 2 tumblers, and a custard cup without a handle. These held the hot stuff from the jug, as well as golden goblets would have done, and Bob served it out with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and crackled noisily. Then Bob proposed.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
Which all the family re-echoed.
A Merry
Christmas to us all, my dears.
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
Thanks for
Said-
catching up, Tim.
Tiny
I am in
Tim,
an iron frame.
the last of all. He
You're
sat
just
very
a very
close.
young mech. It's fine.
He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hand in his, as if he loved the child, and wished to keep him by his side, and dreaded that he might be taken from him. Scrooge raised his head speedily on hearing his own name.
Mr. Scrooge,
Said Bob.
I'll give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed.
Cried Mrs. Cratchit, reddening.
I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon. I hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
My dear,
Said Bob.
the children, Christmas Day.
It should be on Christmas Day, I am sure.
Said she.
On which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow.
Oh, my dear,
Was Bob's mild answer.
Christmas Day.
I'll drink his health for your sake in the days,
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
not for his. Long life to him, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
Tink.
The children drank the toast after her. It was the first of their proceedings which had no heartiness in it. Tiny Tim drank it last of all, but he didn't care twopence for it. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party, which was not dispelled for 5 minutes. It's reminded me of we went down a whole D&D path last year. That Scrooge was an ogre who could cast shadow on the party.
Yeah.
And not dispelled for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
After it had passed away, they were 10 times merrier than before, from the mere relief of Scrooge the Baleful being done with. Bob Cratchit told them how he had a situation in his eye for Master Peter, which would bring in, if obtained, full 5 and 6pence weekly. The two young Cratchits laughed tremendously. Thanks. At the idea of Peter's being a man of business, and Peter himself looked thoughtfully at the fire from between his collars as if he were deliberating what particular investments he should favor when he came into the receipt of that bewildering income. Martha, who was a poor apprentice at a milliner's, then told them what kind of work she had to do, and how many hours she worked at a stretch, and how she meant to lie abed tomorrow morning for a good long rest, tomorrow being a holiday she passed at home. Also how she had seen a countess and a lord some days before, and how the lord was about as tall as Peter, at which Peter pulled up his collars so high that you couldn't have seen his head if you'd been there.
Dr. Strange.
All this time, the chestnuts and the jug went round and round, and by and by they had a song about a lost child traveling in the snow, from Tiny Tim, who had a plaintive little voice and sang it very well indeed.
No, that he's singing Wildfire. You know he's singing Wildfire.
Wildfire.
That's the actual song. Is that what it's called?
No.
Lost Child Traveling in the Snow?
Oh, no.
No. I could do wild horses. I don't think
No,
that's what he's
that
doing.
is not Wildfire.
No, I
There
heard
was
that.
nothing of high mark in this.
Thank you.
They were not a handsome family. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were far from being waterproof. Their clothes were scanty. And Peter might have known, and very likely did, the inside of a pawnbroker's. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. and when they faded and looked happier yet in the bright sprinklings of the spirit's torch at parting, Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last. It was a great surprise to Scrooge as this scene vanished to hear a hearty laugh. It was a much greater surprise to Scrooge to recognize it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room, with the spirit standing smiling by his side and looking at that same nephew. It is a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things, that while there's infection in disease and sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. When Scrooge's nephew laughed, Scrooge's niece, by marriage, laughed as heartily as he, and their assembled friends, being not a bit behindhand, laughed out lustily.
And he said that Christmas was a humbug, as I live.
Cried Scrooge's nephew.
He believed it too.
Oh, we did not have someone for Scrooge's niece, and my daughter's going to bed. So, who are you pointing at? I can't. Are you?
I don't.
I was gonna say.
Oh, you're pointing at Indy? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. Scrooge's niece, indeed.
More shame for him, Fred.
Thanks, said Scrooge's niece indignantly. Bless those women. They never do anything by halves. They are always in earnest. She was very pretty, exceedingly pretty, with a dimpled, surprised-looking capital face, as opposed to a lowercase one.
Right.
A ripe little mouth that seemed to be made to be kissed. As no doubt it was, all kinds of good little dots about her chin that melted into one another when she laughed, and the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any little creature's head. Altogether, she was what you could have called provoking, but satisfactory too. Oh, perfectly satisfactory. Oh, Charles Dickens, got to have his little narrator side moment saying, look at how attractive this woman
I mean,
that I've
really,
created
this
is."
person is.
Yes.
I mean,
welcome to the
why do you-
1800s.
Why do you think he married her?
Yeah. Is he made to be kissed by her husband, who's right there? Just to be
Yes.
clear.
I mean, this is twice now in this story that Indy and I are married. Anyway, so I mean, he's a comical old fellow.
Said Scrooge's nephew.
That's the truth, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offences carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? He don't lose much of a dinner.
Indeed. I think he loses a very good dinner.
Interrupted Scrooge's niece.
Right, I apologize.
Everybody else said the same, and they must be allowed to have been competent judges because they had just had dinner, and with the dessert upon the table were clustered round the fire by lamplight.
Well, I am very glad to hear it,
Said Scrooge's nephew.
because I haven't any great faith in these young housekeepers. What do you say, Topper?
Topper clearly had his eye on one of Scrooge's niece's sisters, for he answered that a bachelor was a wretched outcast who had no right to express an opinion on the subject. Whereat Scrooge's niece's sister, the plump one with the lace tucker, not the one with the roses,
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Blush.
gotta be clear. Yeah.
often confused.
Yes.
After tea, they had some music. They were a musical family and knew what they were about when they sung a glee or catch, I can assure you. Especially Topper, who could growl away in the bass like a good one.
Whoa,
And never-
15 birds, 10
Matilda.
And never swell the large veins in his forehead or get red in the face over it. But they didn't devote the whole evening to music. After a while, they played at forfeits, for it's good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas, when its mighty founder was a child himself. There was first a game at blind man's buff, though, and I no more believe Topper was really blinded than I believe he had eyes in his boots, because the way in which he went after that plump sister in the lace tucker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature. Knocking down the fire irons, tumbling over the chairs, bumping up against the piano, smothering himself among the curtains. Wherever she went, there went he. He always knew where the plump sister was. You wouldn't catch anybody else. If you had fallen up against him, as some of them did, and stood there, he would have made a feint of endeavoring to seize you, which would have been a reply to affront to your understanding, and would instantly have sidled off in the direction of the plump sister.
Here is a new game,
said Scrooge.
1/2 hour, Spirit. Only one.
It was a game called Yes or No, where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something, and the rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no, as the case was. The fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London, and walked about the streets, and wasn't made a show of, and wasn't led by anybody, and didn't live in a menagerie, was never killed in a market, and was not a horse, or an ass, or a cow, or a bull, or a tiger, or a dog, or a pig, or a cat, or a bear. At every new question put to him, this nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter, and was so inexpressibly tickled that he was obliged to get off the sofa and stamp. At last, the plump sister cried out, "Who's the
I
plump
found
sister?"
it out. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is.
What? What is it?
cried Fred.
It's your Uncle Scrooge.
Which it certainly was. Admiration was the sentiment, though some objected that the reply to "Is it a bear?" ought to have been yes.
No.
No.
Uncle Scrooge had imperceptibly become so gay and light of heart that he would have dranked the unconscious company in an inaudible speech. But the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last word spoken by his nephew, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirit stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful. On foreign lands, and they were close at home. By struggling men, and they were patient in their greater hope. By poverty, and it was rich. In almshouse, hospital, and jail, in misery's every refuge, where vain man in his little brief authority had not made fast the door, and barred the spirit out, he left his blessing, and taught Scrooge his precepts. Suddenly, as they stood together in an open place, the bell struck 12. An incredibly swift bell, that one. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
Show me what you've got. No.
The last of the spirits. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee. For in the air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. He knew no more. Trying to give you some time here, Greg.
Yeah.
For the spirit neither spoke nor moved. Then Scrooge said,
I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Ghost of the future. I fear you more than any specter I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear your company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them.
Lead on, lead on. The night is waiting fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were in the heart of it, on change amongst the merchants. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk. And I suppose I will. Trend will be
I'll
the
take
no.
the first one.
Okay,
No,
said a great fat man with a monstrous chin.
I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
Then Indy, as the other businessman, said,
When did he die?
inquired another.
Last night, I believe.
Why, what was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
God knows.
Said the first, with a yawn and a little more, apparently.
What has he done with his money?
Asked a red-faced gentleman.
I haven't heard.
Said the man with the large chin.
Company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me, that I know. Fine.
Scrooge was at first inclined to be surprised that the spirit would attach importance to conversation apparently so trivial, but feeling assured that it must have some hidden purpose, he set himself to consider what it was likely to be. It could scarcely be supposed to have any bearing on the death of Jacob, his old partner, for that was the past. This ghost's province was the future. He looked about in that very place for his own image, but another man stood in his accustomed corner. And though the clock pointed to his usual time of day for being there, he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes that poured in through the porch. It gave him little surprise, however, for he had been revolving in his mind a change of life, and he thought and hoped he saw his newborn resolutions carried out in this. They left this busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town, to a low shop where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. A gray-haired rascal of great age sat smoking his pipe. Scrooge and the Phantom came into the presence of this man, just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop. But she had scarcely entered when another woman, similarly laden, came in too, and she was closely followed by a man in faded black. After a short period of blank astonishment, in which the old man with the pipe had joined them, they all three burst into a laugh. And Indy could be this first one.
Let the charwoman alone to be the first.
Cried she who had entered first.
Let the laundress alone to be the second, and let the undertaker's man alone to be the third. Look here, old Joe, here's a chance. If we haven't all three met here without meaning it.
Yeah, it couldn't have met in a better place. You were made free of it long ago, you know, and the other two ain't strangers. What have you got to sell? What have you got to sell?
Half a minute's patience, Joe, and you shall see.
This might have to be like either Trent or KP,
Another
I
woman.
think. Yeah, another woman.
What odds then? What odds, Miss Dilber?
Said the woman.
Woman. What odds then? What odds, Mrs. Dilber?
Said the woman.
Every person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did. Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose.
Mrs. Dilber, whose manner was remarkable for general propitiation, of course, said,
No,
whoever
no.
Miss Dilber is.
It's the charwoman.
Oh,
Oh,
Indy
the
then.
first one, Charwoman.
There's
Or no,
two women.
So,
the
yeah, that's
guy,
so
and
Indy.
all-
Indy is Mrs. Dilber as the Charwoman.
No, indeed, ma'am.
If he wanted to keep after he was dead, a wicked old screw, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying gasping out his last there, alone by himself.
It's the truest word that ever was spoke. It's a judgment on him.
I wish it was a little heavier judgment, and it should have been, you may depend upon it. If I could have laid my hands on anything else, open that bundle, old Joe, and let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to be first, nor afraid for them to see it.
Joe went down on his knees for the greater convenience of opening the bundle and dragged out a large and heavy roll of some dark stuff.
Yeah, what do you call this? Bed curtains?
Ah, bed curtains. Don't drop that oil upon the blankets now.
Is blankets?
Who else do you think? Isn't likely to take cold without 'em, I dare say. Ah, you may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, but you won't find a hole in it, nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one, too. They'd have wasted it by dressing him up in it, if it hadn't been for me.
Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror.
Spirit, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heavens, what is this?
The scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncurtained bed. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon this bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this plundered, unknown man.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or this dark chamber spirit will forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire. Quiet. Very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet. This is Mrs. Cratchit.
No, it's Peter.
Peter, he's reading from the book.
This is Peter,
Um,
who is someone.
anybody can take this on. It's like 2 lines, maybe.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them.
Where had Scrooge heard those words? He had not dreamed of them. The boy must have read them out as he and the spirit crossed the threshold. Why did he not go on? The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
Color hurts my eyes.
She said, "The color? Poor Tiny Tim."
They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time.
Oh wait, I was thinking that was
I think
Peter
that's
there.
actually Mrs. Cratchit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you want me to reread it?
Oh, yeah, whatever.
They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time. Past it, rather.
Peter answered, shutting up his book. Shut up.
But I think he has walked a little slower than he used these last few evenings, Mother. I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed. And so have I.
Cried Peter.
Often.
And so have I.
Exclaimed another. So had all.
And this is Mrs. Cratchit again.
Okay. But he was very light to carry. His father loved him so. And it was no trouble. No trouble. And there's your father at the door.
She hurried out to meet him, and little Bob and his comforter, he had need of it, poor fellow, came in. His tea was ready for him on the hob, and they all tried who should help him to it most. Then the two young Cratchits got upon his knees and laid, each child a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, father. Don't be grieved." Bob was very cheerful with them and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table and praised the industry and speed of Mrs. Cratchit and the girls. They would be done long before Sunday, he said.
Sunday? You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear.
Returned Bob.
I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green the place is. It's just... But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child. A little child.
He broke down all at once. He couldn't help it. If he could have helped it, he and his child would have been further apart, perhaps, than they were.
Hector,
Said Scrooge.
something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was, with a covered face, whom we saw lying dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be? Or are they shadows of the things that may be only?
Still, the ghost suddenly went Irish there for a second. Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood.
Men's ghosts will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered, persevered in, they must lead. But if the courses be departed from, the end will change. Say it thus with what you show me.
The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed? No, spirit. Oh, no, no. Spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been for this intercourse. Why show me this if I'm past all hope? Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life.
For the first time, the kind hand faltered.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep all the...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, your camera's so dark we can't see what you're doing. So I presume there's a finger there. I can only see your wrist. It's the only thing that's illuminated.
A little. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me, I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. He was checked in his transports by the church's ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard.
Ding dong!
So lusty they had to be censored. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, no night. Clear, bright, stirring, golden day.
What's today?
Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes, who perhaps had loitered in to look about him.
Eh?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello?
Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?
I should hope I did.
An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they have sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
What, the one as big as me?
What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now.
That's it. Go and buy it.
Walker!
exclaimed the boy.
No, I'm in earnest. Go and buy it, and tell him to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back within less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown.
Hey.
Pew!
The boy was off like a shot. Who made that sound effect?
I did.
Okay.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shouldn't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's Wilby.
Joel Miller.
Yeah, I read about this. It's a reference to, I think, a popular columnist of the day. I think, basically. So
Joel,
brother, the guy who started the Steve Miller Band. Yeah.
right, yeah, exactly.
Oh, why
Wrote the famous
isn't that
big
also the
old-
name? Isn't Joel Miller also the name of the protagonist in The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Well, that's really what it's a reference to.
But
There's a
he's
section where he
Joel.
reads "Big
Yeah.
old jet airliner, don't carry me
Right.
too far away."
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Big old Queen
But he's-
Victoria.
It's really a
He's-
reference to.
But he's Joel. This is Joe.
Yeah.
Right, I know. Yeah,
Totally different
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Totally different.
This is
Yeah,
the one with the weird pinky finger.
got it.
Yeah.
Of
right.
course. How could I mix them up?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. It was a turkey.
Poulterer's man was a turkey?
It was. He could have stood upon his legs, that bird. I often think about that when we have our Thanksgiving turkey. I'm like, oh, you poor thing.
Yeah.
You were really, really big. He would have snapped them short off in a minute, like sticks of sealing wax. Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. And walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said,
Good morning, sir.
"Good morning,
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Merry Christmas. Yes.
Merry Christmas to you."
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
And Scrooge said often afterwards that of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, these were the blithest in his ears. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock. But he made a dash and did it.
Is your master at home, my dear?
Said Scrooge to the girl. Nice girl, very, the narrator points out.
Mhm.
Always gotta let you know.
Oh, Dickens.
And playing
Yes,
the part
sir?
of, yes,
Thank you.
random girl.
Where is he, my love?
He's in the dining room with his mistress.
Wow.
He knows me.
Said Scrooge with his hand already on the dining room lock.
I'll go in here, my dear.
I think it's still Scrooge saying,
Yeah.
There's a burglar!
"Fred!"
We were breaking in! Someone get a bat!
Or actually, I
Fred,
think,
Fred
I
is
think
the nephew, by the way.
Fred is me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Fred.
Yeah. Go ahead. Wait, well, who's going ahead? I think actually
Somebody
the point,
has to say Fred.
I think,
need-
I think the point is that it's actually the girl calling for
Yeah.
Fred, and then
Yeah.
Fred's asking who, and then Scrooge answers.
No,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't call. No, she wouldn't call her master by his first name. I think it might actually be
Oh.
Scrooge, who basically is like Fred, like calls out.
Oh.
Okay, all right.
Got it now. Okay. Fred!
Bless my soul. Who's the... Oh, my soul.
It's
Fred,
your
Fred.
Uncle Scrooge! I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
I invited you last night, not today. Anyway,
Not correct.
Let him in.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
quote. It shouldn't be, but
It's that quote that should have been with
That's the quote
girl
that was
who
like, it was like
Scrooge-
the women.
it fell all the way down here.
It's the
Let him
comma.
in.
It's the quote of Christmas future.
It's just
Yeah.
goose grease. It's
The
just been
ghost of
sliding
Christmas
down.
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did every one of them when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it. The clock struck 9. No Bob. A quarter past. No Bob. Bob was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. Bob's hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on a stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello?
Growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it.
What do you mean, coming here at this time of day?
All right, that's me. Shoot. I'm very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer, and therefore...
Scrooge continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again.
And therefore, I am about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler.
A Merry Christmas, Bob,
said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken as he clapped him on the back.
Ow.
A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many years. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy a second coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
You've been watching my family?
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. Laughed like Mr. Fezziwig's winking calves.
Ooh.
But he had no further intercourse with spirits,
That was a very
but
sexy...
lived in that respect upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. Okay, yeah. We made a joke about intercourse there, but then there's okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same. Carry on.
With his old
Carry
English.
on.
And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, we all say, God bless us,
all.
everyone.
Yay!
And now, cast, we read the unabridged version of A Christmas Carol, linked directly below that.
With okay.
Wait a minute.
happened to the
No,
robbers?
look, I have a magic trick. See this? No.
I thought I was robbing something.
So I just, it was awesome. Thank you. And it's funny too. I mean, obviously everyone has a good time doing it, but man, That story has some serious kicks. There are moments in there where you're just kind of like, Jesus. The stuff where the one that my mother always loved, or was like most sort of thrown off by, I should say, is when they're all like debating over his stuff, and they're just kind of like, like, what do you think, Joe? Well, let's sell his blankets, and they're talking about him like just gasping his life out on a bed, and you're like, brutal. Like, and that's exactly, of course, what Dickens would have imagined himself. But the hope of it at the end, especially, and the point, by the way, in case anyone's curious, has nothing to do with whether Scrooge deserves it. He doesn't deserve it. It's not about whether he deserves it. It's the idea that if you can't save someone like Scrooge, and I mean save not in the religious sense, if you can't get redemption from a guy like that, then you might as well go home, right? It's easy to have someone who's a good person already be like, I will be even more good this Christmas. Like, you need a guy who is the worst jackass you could conceive of, who has one person that's like, all right, let's give it a shot, which is Marley for Scrooge, and then have Scrooge actually come out okay. And that's where the hope of it is. So it's good stuff. I absolutely love that story so much, and I loved it because these people were amazing in doing it. So I will start with Indy, amazing job. I loved all of it. The part where Indy does this great thing as well, and the Arvocalists as well, where Indy actually like physically gets into the position. So Indy's just there, like, kind of like, come and know me better, man. Like, he's just leaning backwards. It was cracking me up. I absolutely love that. And then also Indy was like, we were like, Indy, you should do this and this role, this role. So Indy plays like 5 different Victorian British women, like, in this space. Like,
the role you were born for.
Distinct.
I tried to make him as interesting as possible.
It was
so
great. How did you feel about your first experience with Christmas Carol, my friend? How was it?
It was fantastic. I'm upset that I didn't get to show off my robber skills. I
where was the robbery? Oh, Joe.
Yeah. I was waiting for that at the end, but hey, the rest of it was fantastic. Thank you guys again for the opportunity. It's an honor to be able to do this with you guys. So thank you all for watching as well.
Yeah, it was great.
But
yes,
now you've got a year.
Yeah, so we were joking before, since KP got to play Scrooge and he was channeling the anger that he experienced from the traffic as he was coming home. Now I get to internalize the fact that I didn't get to play Scrooge this year, and I'm gonna just writhe in agony and anger for the entirety of the next year, so that when it's my turn next year, you will feel the anger of Scrooge.
I'm already envisioning a 10 times better Scrooge than I.
And I'm already like, there's gonna be so much evil and anger in my heart. I'm gonna be leaning over and the whole thing. Yeah,
he's just standing in front of the mirror like something at a taxi driver. Humbug, humbug, humbug. Oh my God, Indy was great. Seriously, I really, really enjoyed having you as part of this. I'm so glad that you did this with us, and yeah, I think everyone can agree it was awesome. So
Death Metal Scrooge. That's what I mean.
Death Metal Scrooge, exactly. Comes up with just spikes the whole bit. Oh man. Holly through his heart, anyway, it was great stuff. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Moving right up the line, KP, great job as Scrooge. I was excited, especially, and part of the reason I did that was because I was like, okay, because you'd said, you were like, we had experience with maybe the cartoon version and you know the general story, but now you've actually read the abridged story and you've read it as Scrooge. And I was curious, there was this one section where I was deciding to throw this shirt over my head and pretend to be a Ghost of Christmas Future, where, at Scrooge is like confronting his own mortality, not just his own mortality, but his own, I have screwed up all of it. Like I'm done. This is the end of all things. And I liked your expression was kind of this like wide-eyed, like, oh shit, type of thing, which is what Scrooge, of course, is feeling in that moment. And I was curious how you felt playing Scrooge, going through this. What was it like, doing this for the first time and also reading out Scrooge?
Oh, I joked about it earlier, but honestly, I enjoy characters like this a lot. I find it funny because someone like at the very beginning was like, KP Scrooge, I gotta see it, or something along those lines, because I'm typically not one that people associate with negative characters. But I, funny enough, enjoy playing negative characters a lot more. I find it's very cathartic, partially, and also just I don't know. I get it. The entire part of this is playing pretend, right? So you're doing things that you normally are not like, and so there's a part of us all that wants to kind of play the opposite of who we are at time to time to kind of just see what it's like.
Yeah.
So whenever I get an opportunity to play someone that's a little more villainous or maybe a little more of that negative character, I really enjoy it. And so getting to play that on my first ever reading of this story, not to mention, seeing that character arc of this person who is so despised and so reviled, then coming around on himself, and it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that, and I like the idea of that duality. So it was really great. But more than that, I really enjoyed that I got to do this with all of you guys, because that just made this entire experience way, way more enjoyable. And I'm very thankful that this was my very first proper experience of this story.
It's good stuff. Thank you, KP. It was well done. It was a great pleasure, and you have set yourself up very well as the villain in Indy's story for next year. So that works out really well. But thanks, KP. And you should, incidentally, we didn't talk about that, but definitely make sure to check out Indy on all his stuff. You'll also see Indy back here for our vocalist stuff. I was saying to Indy the other day that maybe I might be able to get a little during the winter break. Maybe we could do a little multiplayer Vermintide, something like that, and KP, you should also be checking out all of KP's amazing photography work that he's doing, and also various aspects of things on social media, including a variety of things that KP does. So you should be checking all of that out. And thank you, KP. It was really a great pleasure. Moving right on.
By the way, or did anybody see the hearts that just popped up?
I did. Yep.
Okay, you did, right? That was that.
I saw him.
Hold up.
Wait, did that do it automatically?
I don't know if I didn't touch anything.
I know FaceTime has a thing like that now. Like if you do a thumbs up, it'll like pop up.
That is wild. Also a little troubling. Like,
wait. That's weird.
That's really wild.
I'm not doing it anymore. Now I'm just like, did I see things? So
oh my god, that's wild.
You did, and they were there. So
the hearts of Christmas.
AI. Oh.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Yes.
Thank you, KP. Good stuff. Separate note. I was thinking about this. I don't know if KP felt this way or not, but in this call, there are two of us who are parents of children and young children. KP much younger than me.
Good.
So the whole part where they're like, so everyone's always like, Tiny Tim is incredibly sentimental. I'm like, yes, but if you have kids, it's hard to read that, for me anyway, and not just be a little bit like, all right, I'm fine. I'm just going to be over here. It's sentimental, but it's sentimental for a reason because, woof. Anyway, I was wondering about that, KP, because I was like, right?
Trust me, dude. I know what you feel. I cannot see media anymore with children in it.
Yeah.
In any that gets harmed.
It makes it so hard.
Or in any sort of emotional distress or anything like that. Because I saw freaking Godzilla's -1 over the weekend, and there were scenes with little children, and I was just like, nothing. To anybody who's wanting to watch, there's no trigger warning. It's nothing bad. It's just as a father, even the tiniest things, you're just like,
yep. Absolutely. Word to the wise: don't take your wife to a production of the great Renaissance play, The Duchess of Malfi. Several, about 2 or 3 months, first time that she's been out of the house after giving birth to a new child. When you teach that play and have conveniently forgotten that it involves the strangling of 2 children in it, that's not a good idea, chat. I have done that, and that was a very, very bad, bad idea. Bad idea. Yes. Woo. Anyway, it was a big old whoops. Regardless. Anyway, KV, it was a great pleasure. Thank you. Tren, my friend, as always, it is a great pleasure to have Tren as a part of this. And it's really fun to see Tren having gone through this whole, arc of all of these different characters at different times. And it was literally in the middle of it that, the scene with Fezziwig, that I'm like, wait, Mrs. Fezziwig doesn't say anything. And I'm just like, well, you better get ready for that substantial artificial smile there, and then you
Right.
did that freaking ridiculous improv, which was you and Indy, right?
Yeah.
That were just like improving it up. Oh my god! Like, oh, the Cavs. I was like, just, and Chad is just dying with just like the Cavs. Like, it was
But
very.
why do you
well-
think
well
I
done.
married him? It's the Cavs, darling.
It's all about the Cavs. That was great. Trent, how did you feel? You've done this so many years, but with a new, Zach and I are the same, but KP and Indy are different additions to the mix. So how'd you feel about all of it?
Well, before I get to that, speaking of movies that you shouldn't go and see, sort of. I've told this story before, but my mom went to see the movie Alien in the theater
Ooh.
when she was 6 months pregnant with my little sister.
Oh,
And
Ooh.
that is not a movie you go watch when you have a life form growing inside you that's going to come bursting out. So,
Oh, that's right. Can only imagine seeing
Hello,
that
my
scene.
baby.
Hello,
Hello,
my
my honey.
honey.
Hello, my right
Yeah.
tongue now.
I was
Yeah,
just
exactly.
thinking about
Baby, my
that.
heart's on fire.
yeah, yeah.
Oh god!
Oh
So-
my
Thank
god.
God for
So-
Spaceballs, man.
Oh, yeah. John Hurt was so good in that.
Uh,
It took me a while to realize that was him, that he looked up, not again.
Yeah, no.
And then I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. Not person.
Oh,
Anyway,
God.
so yeah, I thought today was great. The fact that Indy and KP were both, so apprehensive before we went and we're like, it's gonna be fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's gonna be fine. And now looking back on it, you guys are probably like, okay, yeah. Yeah, that was nowhere near as stringent as I thought it was going to be. And you saw the typos that we have to contend with.
Every year, because a year passes.
Right.
Every time we read the story, we forget and then remember them every time.
And I'm like, let me go back to scroogeandmarley.org, the website for which looks like it was constructed in the GeoCities period of,
It
like
may
yeah.
have been.
the aught 90s or whatever.
Yeah, possibly. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Mr. KP down there and I were narrators in an anthology from some Caltech and JPL authors called Inner Space and Outer Thoughts. The link for the pre-order is right there in chat, and we both had a really good time with that. I presume you had a really good time with that, KP. It was like, again, story was, but yeah, it was good. And now I get to say that I've narrated Dave and Bryn. So,
Nice.
yeah, and where will people see me next? Here.
Yes, for Eberron coming up this weekend, I believe.
I don't remember.
And then for next week for Beowulf, which is going to be the session 0 of that. So that's going to be happening too. So
I still think one of my followers is going to be named Peep. I was trying to think of a better name for him, but I think I'm just going to stick with Peep. I think it makes
all right.
most sense.
If I start singing the theme to the children's song "Peep of the Big Wide World," which freaking rocks, every time you say that, just be aware that this is what you've set
Leave the
yourself up
stream.
for. It's great. It's by Taj Mahal. Well, it's a sun. Anyway, always a pleasure, Trent. Really great stuff tonight. Thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Zach, with the marathon narration session. Everyone always thinks like
Yes,
Scrooge is a
sir.
huge role, but man, the narrator does not quit. Like the narrator,
Nope.
and the narrator also. I agree with what Craigery said. It's a very, very well written story, but it is still a well written story that is somewhat in an older style, obviously. And it's written in a style where sometimes what you're getting to actually makes a ton of sense in terms of how it's arranged. But when you're first coming across it, you're like, what the because of the way that it's constructed, right? Like it's this sort of, you have to kind of follow the flow of the language. So it's not easy to do that. And it's not easy to do that partly also because the narrator voice is so strong. You get the impression it's like a fourth spirit who's like hanging out over the shoulder of people watching this happens. There's a lot to go through, but you
Fourth
manage
spirit
it all.
that's really into attractive girls and likes to
Yeah. And then occasionally exactly. These references to like, the provoking or plump. Yeah, I know. Yes, exactly. Not full enlightenment, I'm afraid.
Yes.
But it was just like what? But you did great, Zach. Of course, as I would have expected. How was it going through the full narrative power of narration? How'd you feel about it, and going through this with the different folks too, with KP and Indy, for example?
Felt great. I think my first or second read with you guys, I was the narrator, and then I was Scrooge one year. and then assorted voices the other year, and then now back to narrator.
Were you the narrator
Look,
the whole time? I guess you might have been back then. Like the first one, I wasn't sure if you
I
were.
think I don't remember,
Yeah.
but I do remember narrating at least like the beginning. I think.
Mhm. Yeah, Roof was
think that may
asking
have
for
been
the
my
Irish
first-
narrator earlier on.
Yeah,
Scrooge is
yeah,
better than his word, Begorra.
yeah. I
all and
know.
infinitely
That
more.
was great.
All from what I don't even remember what I said. That I'm trying to find it here.
It was right towards the great, like
Yeah.
this very big moment. You're like, well, to Scrooge, and sure, and you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
losing your life
I
there.
found the line. Right after Scrooge says something. For some reason, I said, "Still the ghost," and I
Still the
Right.
ghost.
just let that go a
The
long
Holy
time.
Ghost.
Pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. The spirit was no. Next
See,
year,
if you could pull that the whole time and just be like,
I
Scrooge was
could.
better than his word.
I didn't want to like. I could have done the whole narration in like David Attenborough. You know, like Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatsoever.
I mean,
about
that's pretty
that.
awesome. I'm
That
standing in a
would-
pile of bat guano. I'm David
Yes.
Attenborough. Yeah.
But yeah, I went for the casual, something I could probably maintain the whole time and not make a mockery of it. But no, enjoyed it. For some reason, how much the story has aged was much clearer to me. Maybe it's because the last time I narrated it was 4 years ago, and I guess just in the last 4 years narrating it now, just all the differences in age of like things that we say and different meanings to words and all that stuff that are double entendres nowadays. I don't know, those all as a narrator I tried to do my job, but those all definitely did not go over my head. So I don't know, it's just interesting. That's why I said I think I'd be curious to see, of course, all these franchises have their own interpretations of them, Jim Carrey being Scrooge and the Muppets, and I'm sure there's so many others, but I'd be curious to see other versions, not necessarily to read on here, but
Just to see them.
the story is timeless.
Yeah.
Too, though.
Bill Murray too.
That's right, Bill
Right.
Murray. There's three great ones to my mind. There is the one with which was my mother's favorite, which was I think with Alistair Cook. Like his thing when he's just like when he's having the discussion with the kid after he's like come back or whatever, and he's just like a wonderful boy, a remarkable boy. Like he's got this wonderful like bubble, joyous nature to him. Second one is Patrick Stewart, who's incredible in that, and he does this one person show version of it, which is ridiculous. Like it's so good. Like he
Really?
does every voice. Stewart
Isn't there,
he
like,
did it on Broadway for a while, actually.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's a scene where like Scrooge starts laughing.
Yeah.
And like Patrick Stewart is you think he's choking on something, and it just evolves into this full bellied laugh, and he stops and does an aside directly. It goes, it really was a very good laugh, and then he goes right back into it, and I'm like, oh my god, I love this man.
Wow. I need
Yeah.
to see
really
that.
good.
It's really good. I mean, he's
great.
a Shakespearean actor. He's great. And then the last one, and we were talking about this in chat. I'm dead serious about this. A Muppet Christmas Carol is great, and the reason it's great is everyone's just like, ah ha ha. I'm like, no. If you watch, like, yes, they're characters that are Muppet characters. The story cuts through partially because Michael Caine plays it as seriously as a heart attack. Michael Caine does not joke around at all. He literally is just like, no, I'm playing this with regular actors. Like, they're not Muppets. I'm playing with the regular actors. And so it's tremendous. And the puppeteering, the same guy who plays the Ghost of Christmas Present puppet, which is incredible, also plays the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come puppet, also incredible. Like, absolutely, and Gonzo plays Dickens, actually. Absolutely incredible. Like, it's a really good version. I'm not joking. It's like seriously good. And it's like amazing holiday fare. Like that. The Muppets are great, not just because of the goofiness, but honestly, it just shows you how good the story is because it cuts through regardless.
And
Very
if you
good.
don't want to watch the whole thing, you can go to the Cinema Therapy channel on YouTube because they did a review of it.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know that. Nice. That's
Oh my
cool.
god, yeah, that's why I watched it recently.
Okay.
Was because they were doing the thing, and they were talking because the Alan Seawright, who's the filmmaker, he's
Yeah.
talking about the mechanics of how they did
Yeah.
these various things. Like there's a scene where Tiny Tim and Bob Cratchit, they are basically on a lift that drops down out of frame as the lights are going down, so you don't see them disappear out of frame. They're just suddenly gone.
Yeah.
And it's just Scrooge and Ghost of Christmas Present. And Yeah, and he was talking about how one of the things about working with the Muppet puppeteers is you see people doing it, and within seconds they're not looking at the puppeteer anymore. They are locked in on
the
that
puppet,
Muppet, and it is a real person.
Yeah,
yeah.
The puppeteers are and Henson's people are the best ever.
Yeah.
So anyway,
With good reason.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so sorry, Zach. Just you were
No, that I'm glad to do it. I think and the next year I will be excited to see Indy's take on the narrator. And or sorry, as Scrooge. I mean.
Well,
And
also
whoever-
because
I'll do the narrator, whichever one you want.
Yeah, well, no, the thing is that Indy is actually also not, to prepare for this. Indy will now be will be departing and going to a cave where he will live for the next year,
Yes,
and
for
then
the next
emerge only for
364 days.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I
am Scrooge. I have
from my slumber.
Yes, I am become Scrooge.
I am Scrooge, destroyer of worlds.
Of Christmases. Anyway, yeah, no, that's me. So you'll find me and I guess all of us for a New Year version of the Arvocalists with a new game. I think
that's right.
And also I'm on here for Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks, which other people, other regulars of the channel know me for. And otherwise, that's it for this year. Happy holidays, everyone, and to all a good night.
Happy holidays, everybody, and much love to the amazing Arvocalist chat. Can we get some love for this incredible work from Zach Clay, from Trent Sparks, from KP, and from Indy? Great work, everybody. Thank you, and I'll see you gentlemen in various places soon. Bye for now.
Gentlemen, awesome.
All right. That was great. And also chat, side thank you to all of you. You folks are great. And I mean, I expect nothing less. You're the best. I think I have the best community on Twitch because you're all amazing. But no, seriously, it really does make a difference. And I think, obviously a lot of it's fun. And I thought there were moments where the story's kind of power just kind of shines through and you're kind of like, wow, this is no joke. And I love it. I love the social commentary of it. I love the sort of richness of the story. There's more depth to it than I think people think sometimes. And I just love it. Yep. That's a good comment there, Drew. And it was wonderful to see all of the new folks, by the way, who stopped by that haven't seen this before. As I said, this is a yearly tradition, and we'll be doing it again. So also, I should say, as far as other yearly traditions, in case people are interested, later on this month, I will be having my yearly holiday stream with my family. So if you liked what Little Arv had to say, and congratulations to my daughter, to Little Arv, who's asleep now, but she did a wonderful job. If you want to see more of Little Arv and Mini Arv, my son, who isn't on here too much because he's young, and my wife, Mrs. Arv, we will be doing that on Christmas Day. We usually do that for about an hour and a half or so. So we'll be doing some stuff with that. And then I will have my end of the year show as well, in which I rank all the games that I played this year. And I talk about my games of the year, basically top 20, I believe. Well, it depends however many games I played. And then the top 10 for sure are the ones that I always talk about as well. So there's going to be that too. This was great. And I'm grateful to all the folks who have been here for many years and grateful to those who stopped by new again. And I hope you folks will make this a part of your regular holiday tradition because I love seeing people here for that. Otherwise, I should say that I will be back on this channel on Friday for some more Starfield, and then Saturday for Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. And next Tuesday, I will be back with some, I believe it is Session 0 of Beowulf with Tari Toons and with Tren, who you just saw, are going to be doing our Session 0. So it's going to be a good time for that. And if you folks are interested and you're like, I wonder what he's going to do in 2 weeks from Tuesday, I'm glad you asked. You should get a vote in right there because those are the nominated ones for my Patreon-fueled Chat Chosen Game of the Month. I'm going to be playing that in 2 weeks. Dungeon Siege, Metal Gear Solid 3, or Expeditions Rome. So you can get in your votes right now. You do not have to be, even if you won't be here that time, you can get it right now. Dungeon Siege has 4 votes. Metal Gear Solid 3 has 1. But you can get in your votes right now there, and it's going to be running all the way up until next week. And then I will close it down at next week, and the winner will then be the one that we do. So But that is going to do it for me. I am not going to go through everything about my channel now because I've done it already. But we are going to do a raid because it's not super late. So please don't leave if you're going to. Stick around for just a minute while I do this raid, and then feel free to head off to the warm night with some hot mulled cider or whatever your beverage is of choice. I do want to remind people to, if you haven't done so, please follow the channel. Please consider subscribing to the channel or resubbing, as many of the folks did here today, including our Polar. And again, congratulations, Polar, on that last final ever. I'm really happy for you. Congratulations, man. And of course, the Patreon sitting right there. That is really the financial backbone of the channel. I am going to pay these four lovely people, for their work. And so any support that people can give in that regard would be much appreciated. And you get cool stuff for yourself as well as cool stuff for the channel. So sub to the channel, !Arvtreon for the Patreon link. Support all the publishing stuff. Please join us on our Discord, !Arvcord. And please subscribe over on my YouTube channel, which is !ArvTube. And for those of you who are watching over on the YouTube channel, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I hope you'll come back and check us out later in that as well, because that would be lovely. Otherwise, this is what we're going to do. If you are a sub, or rather, if you are not a sub, I beg your pardon, you're going to do this, which is the Arvanauts Have Landed, followed by Twitch Raid. If you are not a sub, you're going to do this. Hey, thank you, Rising Tides. Good to see you. I hope all is well, man. I know you've been very, very busy, but it is good to see you in here. Welcome, Rising Tides. Subraid, the Arvanauts Have Landed. It's my pleasure, Crit Twitch. Thank you, as always, for being here. The Arvanauts Have Landed. Arvany Roar, Arvany Hype, Arvany Witch, Arvany Smug, Arvany Love, Arvany Blown, Arvany Crit Hit, Arvany Sing, Arvany Hype, Arvany, all the Arvanys, which you can bring over there when you are automatically brought to the place that we are going to be raiding, which is going to be happening at some point soon, he said. That's clearly not true because I have a lot more people there we go. That's what I thought. Okay. So, that's the deal with that. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone for having been here. Thanks to my wonderful mods. Thank you to Dragon Spear, to Drew the Damager, to Prince Justin, Shatter Mage, the Rising Tides, Triffity Mats. Thank you for being the best mods in the business. Thank you so much as well to my Patreon supporters and subscribers. Thank you to Dragon, Drew, Prince Justin, Shatter Mage, Rising Tides, Triffid, our Polar, Configuration Queen, Crit Twitch, Fairy Fire, Mrs. Dunsel, Rurf, and of course Trendane. Special thanks as well to Triffid for all the work done with fixing up some of the bot commands, like adding stuff to the bot commands today. Thank you so much. Thank you to my wonderful viewers. Thank you to Betrader. Thank you to Big Boss. Thank you to Craigery, Dr. Hugo C. Hackenbush. Thank you to Galadriel Bot, who's totally not a bot. Thank you to Indy. Thank you to Jagtress. Thank you to Lightning Invoker. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to Mighty Mur. Thank you to Nonstop. Thank you to Spofo. Thank you to Steven. Thank you as well so much. Oh, an anonymous user has gifted a 3-month gift of Tier 1 sub to Craigery. Thank you to the anonymous user. Thank you so much for doing that, anonymous gifter. Craigery, welcome back for 3 months. Thank you. And thank you as well to, first of all, to the Raiders. Thank you so much to author Little Badger and all the Raiders who came in. Thank you to all of those who were stopping by. And in particular, on top of that, thank you so much to the wonderful Arvocalists. We'll see Rem Alternus back with us next month. I'm sure that we'll have a chance to talk to alumnus Little Red Dot down the line as well. But thanks to my wonderful current Arvocalists who are here tonight, and that's KP, Zach, and Indy, and our alumnus Arvocalist, Tren, who joined us and did such an amazing job. Thank you to them as well. Stick around for the raid, everybody, and of course, especially on this holiday season, thank you, as Tiny Tim observed, God blesses everyone. Much love to all of you. Thank you all for being here. And I always say this, I always mean it, but I especially mean it today. Everyone, please be good to each other and stick around for the raid. I'll see you folks on Friday. Until then, everyone be good to each other. Bye for now.